Creating games in Unreal Engine doesn't have to be overwhelming. In this video, we'll build a complete puzzle game step by step. From a functional minimap to tracking progress with a clean UI, you'll learn how to bring your game concept to life using blueprints. In this video, I'm going to walk you through creating a fully playable puzzle game in Unreal Engine. We'll start by creating a new level, adding a landscape, and painting foliage with materials and layer to bring the environment to life. Then we'll add a functional minimap to guide the player, design a start screen to load the level, and implement a clean UI to track progress. Finally, we'll wrap it up by creating a win screen to complete the experience. By the end of this video, you'll have all the tools to build your own puzzle game from scratch. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, before we start doing anything, I just need to mention a few things. That is, this tutorial or the game we'll be working on is not by any means the best. There is always a room for improvement, and what I'm showing you or giving you here is the tools to make the game. So with that in mind, let's get started. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna go into the new world, levels, and create a new level. Name it L_game. Now open up the level, and as always you'll see nothing here because there's nothing in our outline. Next I'm gonna create my basic lighting, add a directional light and a sunlight, convert their mobility to movable, and set the skylights real-time capture on. Next I'm going to go and grab the post-process volume, sky, atmosphere, volumetric cloud, and exponential height pop. With those things on, you can see everything. Now let's create a level. So this is gonna be the same steps that we did before, but the little twist is that I'm gonna resize our landscape a bit. I'm going to turn down the X and Y size to 7 and Z to 12 because we don't need that much of a big scale but need a little playground, and this is the easy way. Okay, I need the height to be 18. Next we're going to save and import the level, and as you can see it's already here. Next we're going to go to the selection tab again and override the game mode with VP third person so that we have a character and a playable system. Next we're gonna add the same material as we did before and import the landscape layers. After importing, I'm going to fill the whole layer with grass material. Next we're gonna go into the landscape material and add a few nodes. We're gonna add this landscape grass. This is actually a more optimized way to bring your grass into the world without painting it everywhere. You can assign a single layer to it, and that single layer will only show your grasses. The other layers won't. So you have the freedom to paint anywhere that automatically generates grass. Next, selecting the landscape grass, I'm going to create a grass type by clicking on the options and on the top option that says landscape grass type. I'm going to navigate to my new world folder and create a new folder named grass type. As you can see here, I have already created one, and I'm going to name my grass type to grass_101. Next, open it up and you'll see this sort of blank UI. After opening it, you need to click on that plus icon to create elements for your grass types. Next, I'm going to go to my landscape material blueprint and search for a node called landscape layer sample. Here you need to use the exact name of the layer that you want to paint your grass on. So I'm gonna choose my grass layer and edit the preview weight to 1. Next, you can go to your grass meshes and select your grasses and add them to your elements. Also, one important thing that I need to mention is that if you don't see your grass popping up, then you can use this command grass.flushCache to bypass that loading. Or the other method is that you can go to the landscape mode and paint your grass material for a second and it should pop up. Here I'm going to add my grasses and change the grass density, the scaling, and the start call distance to edit my grass and its density. Remember that this landscape grass is for only grasses and nothing that should have a collision, because with this function you cannot add any collision to your scattered meshes. I'm gonna go test and change the scalings of my grasses to better suit the environment. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to go and select all my foliages, the trees especially, and check if nanite enabled or not. And as you can see here, there might be some issues regarding the placement of the foliages. Some trees are a bit hovering over the ground. You can fix that easily by selecting all your meshes that you want to fix and scrolling down into the details panel and change the Z offset to your needs. Here I'm changing from -5 to -3 for better offset. Now let's test it out. Okay, so you see we're clipping into the trees. To fix this, we can select all our meshes that we need to fix and scroll down, navigate to the collision tab and set the collision to block all. That way your trees will have collisions on whatever mesh you want. Next I'm going to paint all the trees. Okay, now that we're done, you can also carve out the road like I showed you in the previous tutorial. You can just go to the landscape tab and onto the paint. You can select your layer and start painting it. Do not forget to blend a little, because whenever you paint, it's gonna be a little harsh. Next, I'm gonna go into my new world folder and create another folder called widget. Into the widget folder, I'm going to right click and scroll down, find widget and create a widget blueprint. Name it WP_game. Open it up and add a canvas panel to the editor. Next, I'm going to add a text block and position it carefully. I like the top left corner and edit it to like objects collected X by 7. Next, I'm going to drag an image, scale it to 250 by 250 so it's a perfect square. This will be our minimap. Okay, once that's done, we're gonna locate our third-person character and change some things over here. To make the minimap, add a scene component 2D into your character and position it on the top of your character's head and into a distance. Okay, next, don't forget to save. Next, we're gonna go to the new world, textures, and create a new folder over there and name it render target. Onto the render target, I'm gonna go right click in the blank space, search for render target, create it, and name it RT_minimap. Now from there you're gonna go to the third person character blueprint and select the screen capture component 2D and set the texture target to the render target we just created. Next, add the event begin play and search for create widget so that our widget is always on the display. After the create widget, select the widget WP_game and set it on the class. Next, from the return value of the create widget node, search for add to viewport and run it with the execution pin. Next, I'm going to add a player start so that whenever we play from the other blueprint, the player just doesn't fall from the sky. Okay, next I'm gonna go to the render target folder, right clicking on the texture. I'm gonna create a material and name it M_minimap. Okay, now open the material and change the shading model to unlit. Let's get back to the folder, select the material, go to the widget blueprint and click on the arrow while selecting the image and your material should be set. You should see an error because we need to change one thing, that is to change the material domain from surface to user interface. Now the minimap should work as intended. Let's test. And now it works. Before anything, this is not the exact minimap I wanted, so let's change a few things. Into the main characters panel, you'll need to organize the hierarchy of the render target camera or the capture component 2D camera with a spring arm onto your mesh. You can adjust it like this. Next, on the spring arm, we're gonna disable a few things that are inherit pitch, inherit yaw, and inherit roll. Disable these things and you should be good to go. Also, change the arm length to 600. Next, onto the scene capture component 2D, set the projection type to orthographic and ortho width should be 800. Okay, now let's play and test. This is more like it. Next, I'm gonna go into the content browser again, a new folder into the new world, name it Blueprints. Okay, in here, I'm gonna right click and create a blueprint class, select actor and name it BP_collectible. Open up the BP and dock it to the main panel. Next, I'm gonna add some components. One is static mesh. The other is a sphere collision and a sound component. These are the only component we'll need. Okay, compile and save. Let's go to the event graph. Now, right click on the sphere collision and add event component begin overlap. When the node is here, from the other actors, cast to the main character. For here, it's cast to third person character, and we're going to check if this is valid or not. From is valid, we're going to destroy the actor. So when the third person character collides with the sphere collision, it's gonna destroy the collectible blueprint. Next, let's go to the fab and select our asset. Here you can find a lot of good stuff, but I'm choosing this sodalite gemstone. I'm gonna select my mesh and come to the collectible blueprint, select the static mesh and just click on the arrow key to replace the object. As you can see, as the sphere collision is the child of the stone or the static mesh, it's scaling in respect to static mesh. Now let's bring in the static mesh or the blueprint we just created, BP collectible. Now don't forget to save. Okay, next. Oh, okay, I can explain. So we're going to create this blueprint or the custom event over here. To do this, you're gonna need to go to the variables section, click on the plus icon and create two variables and name them collection and max collection. Also, don't forget to set the default value of max collection to 7. Okay, for the blueprint, we're gonna create a custom event, name it collectibles collected, get your collection variable, and from there, create an increment node. Now bring in your max collection. From the increment node, pull a pin and search for greater or equal to. Next, from the boolean pin, create a branch and set it. This is going to check if our collection is greater or equal to our max collection. Okay, now once that's done, we're going to debug this blueprint if this works or not. I'm going to add a print string to the blueprint and check what's the value that I'm creating. Also, as we don't have much BP collectibles in the ground, I'm going to add a key that runs this blueprint. So I'm going to bring in my F button and call the function from there. So whenever I press F, the blueprint is called. Okay, as you can see here, the blueprint is called only after it's crossed 7. So in this case, the function is working properly, but we need to verify this in a different way. So as you can see now, when I press the F button, it creates the variable. Now let's create a UI blueprint or a system that will keep a track of how many objects we have collected. To do this, I'm going to go to the widget blueprint and select the text onto the details panel. From the text, I'm going to click on that little icon and create a binding. In here, I'm going to cast to my third person character and hook a relatable target or object like get player pawn. From the as third person character, I'm going to get collection number. Now, from the return value of the node of the return node on the text blueprint, I'm going to search for append and No, this is not it. I'm going to search for append. Select the append node from the string. Now from here, I'm going to add the line where it says objects collected with a colon. On the next tab, I'm going to hook the collection node that I just brought from my third person character. And lastly, by 7, because we need to collect 7 objects to win. Okay, as you can see here, we haven't collected anything, so it didn't add up. But let's check with the F button. So when I'm pressing F, it's working. And it will not show if I go more than 7. Let's tidy the blueprint up. Compile and save. Onto the BP collectible. From the as BP third person character, search for the function we just created, collectibles collected. Now this should work fine. Okay, yes. Whenever I collect one, it adds to the widget and also to our record. Now this branch will determine how we handle the max collection. Is more or equal to the collection. Okay, next to the widget blueprint in the designer, we're going to create the windscreen. I'm going to add a blur screen or a background blur and scale it up to proper size, and also increase the Z order to 2. Next, I'm going to add a little animation to our windscreen so that it just doesn't pop up and do nothing. I'm going to go to the window tab from the editor and select the animations. This will bring up my animation editor. Next, on the animations tab, I'm going to create one animation by hitting the plus icon and naming it blur background. From here, I'm going to add the keyframe of 0 of my background blur strength. Next, I'm going to scroll the scrubber into the timeline and increase the background blur and create a keyframe. To me, 30 seems fine. Let's stick with 30 and test. Now onto the graph of the widget blueprint. In the event graph, I'm going to create a custom event, name it add BG blur for background blur. Bring in my background blur animation reference that I just created and add the play animation forward node. I'm going to change the custom event name to create windscreen. Next, I'm going to go to the characters blueprint, and from the create widget node, from its return value, I'm going to call the function create windscreen. Now bring in the character movement reference and search for stop movement immediately, so that whenever we win, the game pauses and everything stops. Now, as for this test, you'll see that the background blur is already on. That's because the default strength we already had. I'm going to change the default value to 0 so that it just doesn't always stay up there. Compile and save. Okay, now that's good. Next, into the level, I'm going to add in total of 7 because 7 is the max collection I added, and you need to collect 7 collectibles to win the game. Okay, let's test it. As you can see, the UI is working with the numbers and you get the windscreen. Oops, you can fix this by changing the anchor for the background blur. Change it to the whole screen and not just a corner. Now this should work fine. Yep, it's working. As you can see, there are some little offsets. We're going to put the value 0 to all of them and they should work. Now that's good. Don't forget to hit the save button every once in a while. Next, in the character blueprint, we need to add disable input so that we don't move. And we also need our cursor so that we can click on a few buttons that we will create in a bit. So after winning, yes, we are not moving, as well as we have our cursor. Okay, next, into the widget blueprint, I'm going to add a few buttons. To do that, I'm going to add a canvas panel, add the proper size, The canvas panel is here to keep everything clean so that whenever the windscreen pops up, we can do it only with the canvas panel. It should work. Okay, it's working. Nothing's changed. Now I'm gonna add a vertical box for my buttons. Also, as you can see here, I cannot move my vertical box just by clicking and holding it. To change that or to fix that, you need to increase the Z order. Now I have anchored my vertical box into the center, and I'm gonna resize it to my need. I'm just going to add 2 buttons, so I don't need a big box, just a little would do. Next, I'm going to change and add a few paddings around my buttons. Now, after that, I'm going to add a text into the buttons and change them to one being play again and the other is exit. After that, I'm going to change the color of the buttons. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to add this button to the animation so it doesn't always stays up in the front. I'm going to delete the previous animation and keyframes because I added the canvas panel. So when I hold the canvas panel, every element inside it will change accordingly. Here I'm going to change the offset a little so that the animation is like just moving from bottom to top and doesn't look as boring as it would be. Just a little will do fine. Okay, next I'm going to add the render opacity so that it doesn't always shows up. It should be going from 0 to 1. Add a keyframe of 0 at the beginning and 1 at the very end. Okay, now that everything's done, I'll add the default render opacity to 0. Once we've collected all the collectibles, we have ourselves a windscreen. Now, keep in mind that you can do anything you like in the windscreen, and if you guys tell us enough, we will create a dedicated video towards it. Now once that's done, I'm going to change the color and opacity a little, add a border to the buttons. Play with the details panel settings in the button menu and you can see a lot of things you can do there. Explore a little. Okay, now that's done, we can move to start screen. So to do that, we need a new level and a new widget blueprint. To create a widget, I'm going to go to the new world, and into the widget, I'm going to create another widget. And I'm going to name it WB for widget blueprint underscore game start. Now, as the same as before, I'm going to add a canvas panel, resize it to my need or my target resolution, add a blur screen or background blur, anchor it to full screen and resize it. Also add a little blur strength. Now let's go to the level and create a new level. Name it L underscore G start. Okay, into the level, I'm gonna create a basic and flat landscape with the default settings on. Hit create, and I'm going to apply the same material from the details panel. Selecting the landscape, I'm gonna search landscape, mi underscore landscape should pop up. And we're done. Next, on to the landscape mode, I'm going to import all my layers and fill the layer with grass. Always remember to hit save. And now I'm going to add my basic lightings. That should do it. And paint a few foliages for my windscreen. Okay, I'm going to select a suitable position. Once that's done, go to the top cinematic icon and add a level sequencer. Now you should create a folder called cinematics and use that as your base folder and dock everything you don't need. Next, onto the sequencer tab, I'm going to add a camera with cuts. You can do that by hitting on this icon. Next, view from your camera. I'm going to add a few keyframes and change the lighting according to my needs. Okay, I also need to mention that we have a dedicated video related to cinematics, and I will highly recommend that you check this out for a better understanding and to upgrade your skills in cinematics. There's nothing more to it, just add a keyframe to your preferred position for the camera. Next, we're going to go to our level blueprint, and from here we just need the begin play. Select the sequencer from the level and right click in the level blueprint and select the first option. That way you can get any reference that is inside the level. From the reference, I'm going to search for play and select the sequencer player attached node. This way it will play the sequencer. But as you can see here, after the given time or the sequencer time, the sequencer just quits or the camera just quits. To fix that, we're going to search another node that is called play looping. This will loop the entire sequencer indefinitely. Okay, now that's done. We can create our widget blueprint. To do that, I'm going to search for create widget. And select my preferred widget, that is GameStart. And from there you can add the owning player as get player controller, or you can leave it blank. From the return node of the create widget, I'm going to search for add to viewport to show the widget. Next, I'm going to add a little animation in the widget and a few buttons. I'm going to create a vertical box and resize it, add 2 buttons that it should show. Next, from the player controller, I'm going to show my mouse cursor so that we have a mouse cursor to click on. The buttons are clickable. I'm going to change their color and size a little, add a little border, add proper text to it, start game and exit game, and that should do it. Okay, now selecting the button, I'm going to scroll down in the details panel and click the plus icon on clicked. This will create an event for whenever the button is pressed, this event will fire. So for the start game, we're going to I'm going to change the name of the buttons so that it's relevant when I'm working. So on the event, I'm going to open a level by reference, and here I'm going to select the level that we just created, L_game. As for the exit game, click on the plus button on the event on click. This event will trigger the quit game function. Search for quit game, and this should do it. To test, when I hit start game, the game starts and it works as intended. Okay, these 2 buttons don't have any function yet, but we're gonna add them in a bit. In the previous blueprint, I'm going to add a text and say congratulations on winning. Now whenever you won, you're gonna get this message. Okay, now this congratulations message is shown properly. Next, as for the buttons, I'm going to hold the button on the designer and scroll down on the details panel and click the plus icon for on-clicked. I'll do this for both of them. And on the play again button, I'm going to open our start game level, which is L_G start. And on the exit button, I'm going to just call the quit game function. And that's it. We created a stunning environment, added a minimap, designed UI elements, and brought everything together with a windscreen. But we're not stopping here. There's so much more we can add to make this game even better. In future videos, we'll look at adding sounds like footsteps, ambient environmental audio, and other elements to enhance the experience. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Unreal Engine tips and tricks. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, happy developing and a happy new year.